Hello, we'd like to welcome you to the All Bugs Good and Bad webinar. It's going to be on the Itsy Bitsy spiders. Are those Itsy Bitsy spiders good or bad? And what we're going to be doing today is going to be covering various aspects of spiders, whether they're the positive and negatives. And we're fortunate to have with us Dr. Nancy Hinkle, and she is extension veterinary entomologist with the University of Georgia. She is has her background is BS and MS from Auburn University, and on her MS she worked on mosquito suppression with Dr. Gary Mullen with Auburn University, and she got a PhD from the University of Florida in '92. And then in '92 through 2001, taught medical and veterinary entomology at the University of California, Riverside. And currently, 2001 to present, she's a professor of entomology, University of Georgia. She teaches medical and veterinary entomology. She conducts research on flies, fleas, ticks, lice, mites, and other biting insects. And she has a 100% appointment with the Extension. She's also been involved in a number of publications that she has contributed and participated with, one on brown recluse spiders and also one on some of the helpful spiders. So I'll let her, she can elaborate on those a little bit more if she wants to. But and you have a chat box to the left of your screen. If you want to ask a question, feel free to type that in and submit it. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hinkle now and let her move forward.
Thank you, Charles. Well, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, over a third of Americans suffer from arachnophobia, which is, of course, the fear of spiders. Now, as we can appreciate, this fear can cause people to do all sorts of ridiculous things. They avoid situations where they might encounter a spider. And arachnophobia can be very confining and very restrictive, especially when parents impose it on their children. Oh, and by the way, the only two fears that more people suffer from than arachnophobia are fear of public speaking. 74% of people fear public speaking, and fear of death is second with 68%. In other words, 6% of us would rather die than have to get up and give a public speech. Now, every day here in the United States, 92 Americans die in automobile accidents, and no one dies from a spider bite. So if our fears were rational, we'd all be terrified of cars, not of spiders. As a medical veterinary entomologist, as Charles mentioned, I am no authority on spiders, but I find them so fascinating that I've adopted them as a hobby. At the end of this talk, I'll provide my contact information if you want to follow up afterwards. And as Charles mentioned, we can have questions as well. Farmers know how valuable spiders are. They're beneficial arthropods. Spiders are predators, and they eat a lot of pests. Some spiders have been demonstrated to play significant roles in the food webs of various crops. They assist in keeping plant-eating pests, like this hapless grasshopper shown here, from destroying yield. And as you can see, a spider will take on prey larger than itself. As predators, almost all spiders have venom with which to subdue their prey. So if someone asks, is this spider poisonous? Truthfully, I have to answer that yes, it is venomous. However, most spiders have mouth parts that are too small to penetrate human skin. And trust me, all spiders are more afraid of you than you are of them. No spiders are bloodsuckers. Spiders do not drink blood, so they get no benefit from biting us humans. In fact, by calling attention to themselves, they actually put themselves at greater risk and greater danger from us humans. Contrary to all the urban myths you can read about on the internet, spiders do not sneak into our beds at night and bite us. The spiders bite only in self-defense. They don't do it for any benefit to themselves. Now, what makes a spider? All spiders produce silk, although most of them don't actually produce webs, or a lot of them don't produce webs. They use the silk in mating. They also use the silk to wrap up their eggs to make egg sacs. And most spiders produce a drag line, which serves as a safety feature to keep them from being blown away by a gust of wind, perhaps. Spiders have 8 legs. Of course, insects only have 6 legs. That's what makes them insects. And spiders only have 2 body segments compared with 3 body segments in insects. Now, the 2 segments of the spider body are shown here, the cephalothorax, which is just a combination of the head and the thorax, and the abdomen. And that, of course, is compared with the head, thorax, and abdomen in insects. Spiders also have important structures around the mouth called pedipalps, and these are full of sensory structures, and male spiders use these pedipalps in inseminating females. Additionally, these pedipalps are very useful in spider identification, which we'll mention later on. There are a lot of fascinating aspects of spiders, things like crypsis or camouflage is shown here. See how well this spider is hidden? And I'd love to talk about these, but we don't have enough time today. So today I'm just going to focus and talk about spiders that people are particularly interested in and the ones that we are most likely to encounter. Now, frankly, I am not familiar with spiders in the rest of the United States, so I'm not going to do justice to the Pacific Northwest or Alaska or Hawaii or even the northern U.S. You'll see a preponderance of spiders coming from the South because, unfortunately, that's the group that I know the most about. Again, when people see a spider, other than people who go, ew, and run away, their first questions are, what is it, and is it poisonous? Because there are over 4,000 known spider species in the United States, it's likely that I won't be able to tell you the species, and we certainly won't be able to discuss them all today. But at the end of this presentation, I will provide you with a list of books and some websites that may be helpful to you in finding out what spider you're looking at. And again, since all spiders are predators, almost all of them are venomous to some degree, although it bears repeating that most of them cannot penetrate human skin. First off, let's deal with the well-known statement that the daddy longlegs, or granddaddy longlegs as some people call them, is the most venomous spider known. Is it? Well, no. Daddy longlegs do not have venom glands, they don't make silk, and they only have 1 body segment. In other words, they're not even spiders. Daddy longlegs are omnivores. That means that they feed on just about anything out there. They feed mainly on small insects and plant material, including fungi. Many of them are scavengers. They are not capable of biting humans, so they're safe, perfectly safe for kids to play with. And again, not only are they not the most venomous, but they're not even spiders. They're actually called harvestmen, and they're in the group Apiliones. That's their official name. But how about true spiders and the ones of danger to humans? The black widow is venomous. It produces a venom that can be problematic to humans. Everyone seems to recognize the black widow spider. It has a black, almost patent leather-like body, and it has that distinctive red hourglass on the underside of the abdomen. Black widow spiders are ungainly. They have that large pendulous abdomen, and they have those spindly little legs. So they're almost always found hanging upside down in their webs. They really cannot run around on those ungainly legs. Typically, these webs are placed in areas with maximum chance of capturing prey, and also in areas where there's very little air movement. They don't like drafts. So you'll find black widow spiders in areas like wood piles, stacks of bricks, around debris piles, and such. So when working around such materials, when working outside in the garden, it's important to wear work gloves to prevent risk of spider bites. Black widow spiders have very small mouth parts that cannot penetrate gloves. These spiders, the widow spiders, have neurotoxic venom that can produce severe muscle cramps and generalized body pain. Now, the bite is not lethal, but people who've been bitten by black widow spiders say that it's so painful that sometimes you wish you'd die. Typically, discomfort begins within minutes of envenomation. So very shortly after being bitten, the muscles become rigid, and this progresses over the following hours. Without medical intervention, typically the condition will require 2 or 3 days for recovery. However, people who go to the emergency room and get an injection of Latrodectus antivenin say that symptoms are relieved within minutes. So it is recommended that people bitten by widow spiders seek assistance from a physician. And again, despite urban legends, there are no known cases of death resulting from envenomation by the widow species found here in the United States. And in this picture here, note that the widow spiders frequently have additional red spots on the dorsum, in addition to the red hourglass, which is on the venter, the underside of the spider. Black widow spiders produce large, dirty white egg sacs, as shown here. You'll see it looks actually larger than the spider's abdomen because she's wrapped it in silk. A female can produce up to 5 of these egg sacs in her lifetime, and each egg sac averages about 100 eggs. On the other hand, male black widows are much smaller than the females, and they have different markings with numerous red, yellow, and orange spots. Their mouth parts, however, are much too flimsy to breach human skin, so we don't have to worry about black widow spiders biting, the male black widow spiders biting us. They're harmless to humans. Male widows, if you turn them over, have yellow or orange hourglass markings, not nearly as bright and dark red as that of the female. Also, note how enlarged the pedipalps are in the male. These are used as intromittent organs, or sexual organs, to introduce into the female's genital tract and transfer the sperm. Okay, you're wondering why I keep talking about the male's sexual equipment. It's not just an old maid's fascination with sex, but because the pedipalps are essential to species identification. So if you ever need to determine a spider species, you'll likely need to learn about pedipalp morphology. That's why they're important. In addition to our common black widow spider, we now have another widow spider that is becoming widely distributed across the country. This is the brown widow spider. It was originally found in Florida. It's thought that it originated in Africa and eventually got carried across the ocean and ended up in Florida. And it lived happily there in Florida for most of the 20th century. And then, for some reason, a couple of decades ago, it started moving into the rest of the southeastern United States. And it's now been found throughout the southeastern states and also in California as well. This spider, the brown widow, constructs webs on vehicles, so we humans are probably responsible for distributing it throughout the country. We've also found these spiders on nursery pots, so shipments of shrubs and other plants may be spreading them around the country as well. The brown widow is about the same size as black widows, but as you can see, it's a mottled brown. And when you look at the venter, the underside of the spider, the hourglass is usually yellow or orange. Again, not that bright red that you see in the true black widow spider. Some people have said that the body of the brown widow looks like desert camo. While the venom of the brown widow spider is comparable in toxicity to that of the black widow spider, the brown widow is much less aggressive. In fact, it's plumb timid. It's much less likely to bite as well. In fact, when you encounter a brown widow, the spider typically curls up in a ball and plays possum, or drops from the web and tries to escape. Now, do note here another unusual feature. While the egg sac is the same size and color as that of the black widow, it has projections, as you can see here, sticking out of the spider web, the sac there of the egg sac. Again, it's the same size and color as the black widow egg sac, but those projections make it distinctive and give it that spiky appearance. In fact, the brown widow spider's egg sac is so distinctive that you can actually identify the spider that's produced it without ever seeing the spider. There are other Latrodectus or widow spider species in the U.S., including notably the red widow, which is found only in Florida. I just had to show this species because it's so colorful and the markings are so dramatic on this species. But again, you'll find it only in Florida. Now, switching to the brown recluse spider. This is the other spider of human health concern here in the U.S. The recluse spider is also known as the fiddleback spider or the violin spider because of the shape of the markings on the front of the cephalothorax. If you look here, you see something that looks kind of like a violin. Here you see the body of the violin on the cephalothorax. See that shape there? And that's considered to look like a violin or a fiddle. And that's why it's called the fiddle spider or the violin spider. And this is probably the most over-reported spider we have. Everyone who finds a brown spider thinks it's a brown recluse. And of course, because brown is such a good camouflage color, most spiders are brown. There are several Loxosceles species in the U.S., but Loxosceles reclusa, what we call the brown recluse spider, is the species of concern in the Midwest and the South. You see that large red area there. This map shows the distribution of the species of recluse spiders that are found in the United States. However, do realize that with any animal's population distribution, there are areas where the numbers are high, and then near the edge of the distribution, the population is typically spotty. It's analogous to a rain cloud. Under the middle of the cloud, the raindrops are falling thick, and you have a very high chance of getting wet. But out near the edge of the cloud, the individual raindrops are spaced out, and your chance of getting caught by one may be very slight. That's what we see here in Georgia. Even though, as you can see from the map here, the northwest corner of the state of Georgia has brown recluse spiders. But throughout recorded history, fewer than 100 brown recluse spiders have ever been found in the state of Georgia, even though we've had hundreds of entomologists and pest control operators and other people eagerly looking for them. Now, with their terrifying reputation, you might think that the brown recluse spider is a huge, intimidating spider, but they're actually fairly modest in size. So here's one on a quarter, just to give a little perspective on their size. Most spiders have 8 eyes, but recluse spiders are one of the few that have only 6 eyes. Note that the eyes are in 3 groups: a pair at the front, here, and then a pair on the side, and then a pair over on this side. So you've got 3 pairs for a total of 6 eyes. And again, the typical spider has 8 eyes, but recluse spiders are unusual in having only 6, and in that very distinctive grouping with the 3 pairs. Also notice that the abdomen has no markings. It doesn't have any stripes or spots on it. It's just a nice soft brown. There is another group of spiders, the harmless spitting spiders, that have only 6 eyes. As you can see there, they're arranged a little differently. You've got a pair here, pair down in front, another pair over here. But when you look at the spider, you can see it differs a lot in appearance from the brown recluse spider. There's no violin marking there, but the spitting spider does have markings all over its body, both the abdomen and the cephalothorax, spots and speckles and blotches all over it. Now, as I mentioned, brown recluse spiders are rare at the periphery of their distribution, and including here in Georgia, where, as I mentioned, fewer than 100 specimens have ever been found in the state. If you want to investigate more about brown recluse spiders, check out Rick Vetter's website down here at the University of California. There's a lot about brown recluse spiders and a lot of other spider information at that website. Brown recluse spiders are notorious, of course, for producing dermonecrotic wounds with venom that eats away at the skin, producing an open sore. These wounds can be slow healing. A generation ago, most medical schools taught future doctors that any dermonecrotic wound was produced by the bite of a recluse spider. Fortunately, that error has been corrected, and now most physicians do realize that there are dozens of medical conditions that can produce skin necrosis, and spiders, frankly, are among the least likely thereof. However, the majority of brown recluse spider bites produce only a minor, localized lesion that heals within a few weeks with no intervention. Dozens of medical conditions produce lesions that can be confused with brown recluse spider bites. This one shown here, MRSA, or methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, is probably one of the most common. Frankly, most of the lesions that are diagnosed as brown recluse spider bites are probably due to MRSA. And while brown recluse spider bites are not lethal, yes, they can be dangerous and they can be unattractive, but they're not lethal. MRSA, on the other hand, can progress very rapidly, and it can produce death within a few hours unless it is properly diagnosed and treated. So it's important that doctors know how to diagnose and differentiate MRSA from a brown recluse spider bite. Okay, so those are the spiders that most people are concerned about. Now let's look at all the good spiders out there. There are many different types of spiders, and I'm going to categorize them today by how they acquire their prey. Most of us are familiar with the lovely orb webs that some spiders produce. These orb web spiders use the sticky silk they arrange in spirals to capture insects that mistakenly fly into these webs. You've probably seen how rapidly the spider rushes to the prey and wraps it in silk to prevent it from escaping. The spider injects a paralyzing venom that allows the spider then to consume the insect at its leisure. We tend to notice these webs, particularly on foggy mornings when droplets of moisture have condensed on the webs looking like little jewels. But the webs are out there all the time. They're just inconspicuous. There are hundreds of species of orb weavers, ranging from very small to some of our largest spiders. Notice how the giant lichen orb weaver, the green one on the right, is so similar in appearance to a clump of lichen. Great camouflage. And that's one thing about spiders. Many of them are very cryptic, very hidden, very well camouflaged. By comparison, some of the orb weavers are brilliantly colored and very attractive. This one here, the color is very eye-catching. This orb weaver is one that you will likely see this fall. This one is widely distributed and very common. Every year around Halloween, we receive dozens of calls from people claiming they have a brown recluse spider in a web on the porch. Of course, brown recluse spiders do not make orb webs, and no self-respecting brown recluse would ever be found out in the open like that. They're called reclusive for a reason. So again, just because a spider's brown, it's not a brown recluse spider. The barn spider is large. It has an abdomen about the size of a dime, and they typically locate their webs near light so that they can intercept insects that are attracted to the porch light. I usually have a half dozen of these on my porches. This means, of course, that people end up walking into their webs and end up with a face full of spider web. These spiders, of course, are already out here in the spring. It's just they're very small. No one notices them until they get large and they start building those big webs out across the back porch. Here's a much smaller common orb weaver. It's called the spined microthena. And though these spiders look intimidating with all those projections coming off the abdomen, they're harmless. Well, I guess unless you tried to swallow one, probably. These spiders are small enough to fit on a fingernail, and they illustrate how lovely spiders can be if you look at them up close. A close relative is the aptly named arrow-shaped microthena. These also spin a small orb web, but they're lovely in their own right. Again, notice all the projections sticking off the abdomen there. One of the largest orb weavers, and thus one of the most commonly noticed orb weavers, is the black and yellow garden spider, which is also called the writing spider, and it's also been called the banana spider because the yellow color is similar to that of a banana. The writing spiders, you can see the zigzag of silk down the middle of the web there. That's why it's called the writing spider. The female, as you can see here, can be 2 or 3 inches long, while the little male is just a fraction of her size. So this is the male over here. Of course, males only have to be big enough to produce sperm, and they don't waste much time eating and growing, preferring instead to spend their time having sex. The garden spider constructs an egg sac that is similar in appearance to a fig and looks like a fig made out of paper. So here's the egg sac up here in the upper right-hand corner. The garden spider has many other lovely representatives in the genus, including these two. And again, notice the zigzag pattern of the web there, why they're called writing spiders. Some of them produce these lovely lacy patterns in the web. So just beautiful. There's some amazing creatures out there in nature. Another large orb weaver is the golden silk spider in the genus Nephila. Notice the fuzzy knees on this spider. This spider, with its legs spread, is about as large as my hand. So again, this is one of the larger specimens that we have out there. These spiders produce a lovely golden silk, giving them the name the golden silk spider. In fact, you may have read about the cloth that was made from the silk of 1 million of these golden silk spiders about 5 years ago. There was an article about that. As large as these spiders are, you can imagine how much prey each one must eat in order to grow and produce an egg sac. Again, the males are just a fraction of the size of the female. So, since they're such good predators, you can imagine the number of pest insects they're removing from the environment in order to gain this much size. Another common orb weaver is this much smaller orchard spider. But I had to show this one because if you look up close, don't the markings look something like a stained glass window? Again, without being magnified, you'd never appreciate how beautiful these little creatures are. Okay, leaving the orb weavers and moving on to the spiders that actively seek their prey, let's talk about the hunting spiders. One of the distinctive features of this group is their large eyes. Because they're hunters, they have to be able to see their prey. So they're all distinctive in having these very enlarged eyes on the front of the body here. Oh, and while we're here, notice how the pedipalps on this one look almost like bottle brushes. See there, the pedipalps? Here's another hunting spider with large eyes, again, emphasizing their acute vision. They're very good at tracking down prey. And another active hunter shown here. Doesn't this one look like it has personality? Probably the most common hunting spiders are the wolf spiders. I think everybody knows wolf spiders. If you go out into the backyard at night and you hold a flashlight against your ear parallel to your eyes, you'll see little glowing emeralds reflected out across the lawn. Most of these are probably wolf spider eyes. Another feature of wolf spiders is that many of them carry their egg sacs around to protect them from predators and parasites. So that's what this spider is doing here. She's carrying around this egg sac to protect it until the little spiderlings hatch out of the egg sac. Now, typically, these egg sacs are carried at the rear end of the abdomen. So as you can see with this spider, the head of the spider's down here. There you can actually see the eyes right there. But then the egg sac is back here being held at the rear of the abdomen. When all the little spiders back, the little baby spiders then crawl onto the back of the mother, and she carries them around for a couple of weeks until they're able to go out on their own and be independent. Yes, each of those are little baby spiders on that mother spider's back. Or you may see some wolf spiders carrying their egg sac under the abdomen. So here's one, and you can see the egg sac underneath it there. But again, when those little spiderlings hatch out of the egg sac, they crawl up on the mother's back and ride around until they're able to go out on their own. The six-spotted fishing spider is probably one of the longest hunting spiders that we have commonly, or at least that are noticed. This spider is able to walk on water, as you can see here. So it's also known as the Jesus spider. You may not be able to tell that it's walking on water, but you can actually see there's a mosquito larva there. I think there's another one down there. This is a leaf that's floating underneath the spider there. So yes, this spider is walking on water. Note that although the fishing spider's leg span is typically only a few inches, when people describe these to me, the spiders are almost always described as being the size of a dinner plate. People tend to over-describe or to exaggerate a little bit. Again, the six-spotted fishing spider does have a pretty broad leg span, but it's usually only a few inches. My hand is not that big. Green lynx spiders are more colorful than most spiders, but where they live, they're well camouflaged for their habitat. These spiders typically live in plants, and they find their prey among the plant pests. The green lynx spiders have been demonstrated to be significant biological control agents in several cropping systems. One of my favorite spider groups is the jumping spider. Again, these are hunting spiders, so they have those characteristic large eyes for prey searching. Many of the jumping spiders have colorful chelicerae. That's those purple mouth parts that you can see there. And these are again used in sexual displays. See what I mean about some spiders having personality? Another noticeable group is the crab spiders. These spiders have really long legs at the front of the body, with the rear two pairs of legs distinctly shorter than the front two pairs. And this gives them the appearance of a crab with the big front claws prominent at the front of the body. Many crab spiders are very well camouflaged and adapted for hiding and ambushing their prey. Note how cryptic this spider is, with its color very closely matching the flower in which it hides. So it hides in the flower and grabs insects that come in to feed from the flower. Crab spiders range from the very small to some that are mid-sized. Notice how large the front legs are on this little spider compared to its tiny body. One of the largest spiders we find here in the southeast is the trapdoor spider. They are subterranean and have an unusual means of acquiring prey. Because they're subterranean, they are seldom seen. However, when we have heavy rains, like some part of the country have recently, they get flooded out of their burrows and lumber around above ground. People who encounter them assume that they are tarantulas, because any large spider must be a tarantula, right? This shows the trapdoor spider peeking out from its burrow. They have strands of silk extending from the burrow, and they can feel when an insect stumbles across one of the silk strands. When they feel that sensation, it stimulates the spider to rush out of the burrow and grab the prey, and then it retreats to its burrow and conceals itself beneath the trapdoor. A very interesting means of living out there. Now, while tarantula species are common in the southwestern United States, we have no tarantulas east of the Mississippi River. Well, except for those you get at pet stores, of course. And by the way, tarantulas can flick off irritating hairs from their abdomen, so I don't recommend putting tarantulas near your eyes. This is not a good idea. Now, let me tell you about the spiders you're most likely to find in your home. The most common spider found in homes is the southern house spider, shown here. It's also known as the crevice spider because it constructs its silken retreat in cracks like this with strands of silk radiating out from the center. Once you know what to look for, you'll probably start seeing these spiders everywhere. They're very common. The southern house spider is also the spider that is most commonly mistaken for a brown recluse spider. They're about the same size and they're generally the same shape. They've got 8 legs, of course, and of course they're brown, so everyone assumes they must be brown recluse spiders. However, the southern house spider does not have a violin pattern on the cephalothorax, and more importantly, they have 8 eyes, unlike, of course, the 6-eyed brown recluse spider. So here we've got the southern house spider over on the right and the brown recluse spider on the left. And again, you look right there, you can see the violin shape on the cephalothorax. And if you look real close here, you can't see it. See that the southern house spider has a cluster of 8 eyes, on the back of the cephalothorax there, whereas again, the cephalothorax of the brown recluse spider has only 6 eyes. Now, the second most commonly encountered spider in homes is the American house spider. It's small, it has a rotund abdomen, as you can see here, about the size of a pea. And the American house spider is our cobweb spider. These are the spiders that produce cobwebs in our homes. Unlike the lovely symmetrical webs that are produced by the orb weavers, the cobweb spiders produce irregular webs with strands of silk running in all directions. You may notice these spiders because once they have fed, they cut the prey carcasses out of their webs, littering the space below with dead insects wrapped in silk. The spider may be hidden, and the web may not even be noticeable. But if you come into the kitchen every morning and you find little piles of silk-wrapped objects scattered around, there's probably a cobweb spider up above the area. So you can see the cobweb strands there, and then if you look down here, you can see the carcasses of dead insects where the spider has eaten up the insects, and left them wrapped in the silk and then just cut them out of the web and let them drop to the ground below. Very typical of the American house spider. And the third most common spider encountered in homes is the long-bodied cellar spider. These have tiny bodies with long, slender legs, so they are most often seen in their webs. They have very characteristic profiles, as you can see here, but even more diagnostic is their behavior. When disturbed, the long-bodied cellar spider vibrates rapidly in the web, so fast that it looks like a blur. So if you see a spider with very long legs, shaking so fast that you can hardly see it, you're probably observing a long-bodied cellar spider. Yes, the long-bodied cellar spider looks a lot like a daddy longlegs, but again, daddy longlegs don't construct webs, they don't have silk, and daddy longlegs have only a single body segment. Again, the long-bodied cellar spider is a true spider, and the daddy longlegs is not a spider at all. If you find spiders that you want to know the identity of, take pictures. Get close and take pictures of the general aspect, the full body of the spider, and then get in closer and focus in on the mouth parts, and then take pictures of the eyes as well, and certainly get shots of any distinctive markings. Be sure to fill the frame. Most people never get close enough to really use their camera to the best advantage. It's not enough to just show that it has 8 legs. Yes, we know it's a spider because it has 8 legs, but that doesn't tell us much. One of my very favorite spider books is Gaddy's Spiders of South Carolina, which covers most of the common spiders we're likely to encounter here in the South. 2 good websites that you can use to identify spiders are bugguide.net and another one called whatsthatbug.com. Both of these cover not only spiders, but insects as well. And if you want to see some really amazing photos of spiders and other arthropods, check out Troy Bartlett's website shown there, Nature Close-Ups, or Janae Johnson's Up Close Photography blogspot, the website there at the bottom. There are certainly other resources like the National Audubon Society's Field Guide to North American Insects and Spiders, the Golden Guide to Spiders and Their Kin. And if you want more information on controlling spiders, check out the PCT Field Guide to the Management of Urban Spiders. Spiders are the most abundant biological control organisms in many ecosystems, performing invaluable service in reducing pests. The more spiders we have in our gardens, the fewer pests we'll have to contend with. Hopefully, even if you haven't learned to love spiders, you've developed more tolerance for them. When you find spiders in your home, consider placing a glass over the spider, then slide a piece of cardboard underneath, and you can carry the spider outside and release it safely. Safely for you and safely for the spider. And if you want to correct any errors I've made, please contact me at nhinkle@uga.edu. Thanks so much for your time and interest, and thanks again, Charles and Kathy and Jean and everyone out there. I appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you, Dr. Hinkle. This is a great opportunity for people to find out something about spiders. A lot of people have phobia. I know my wife has a strong phobia for spiders, and I try to see if I can convince her that it's, even though they might be large or small, they're still not going to bother you unless you bother them.
Good for you.
And but anyway, there's a few questions I think that some people came through with on it, and I don't know if Kathy, have you got those handy, or you want me to see if I can pull some of those out?
Charles, I can go ahead and start. I sent you a text message too. If you find there, you may want to chime in too. Nancy, one of the first questions was, are all orb spiders good spiders?
All orb weavers are good spiders, yes.
That was a quick answer.
Easy.
Now, I had a question of myself. You're the second person this week that I've heard start to say something about venomous and poisonous and correct themselves. What's the difference between venomous and poisonous?
Excellent question, Kathy. I actually gave that to my students on their final exam. Poisonous means they have a poison in their body, and so for poison you have to eat, you have to consume the organism, whereas venomous are like spiders, they're like scorpions, they're like snakes. They have a poison, usually in a gland, that they then inject into their prey, if you can think of yourself as prey. So spiders and scorpions and stinging insects like wasps and bees and hornets and snakes, all of those are venomous. And if you think about the way that blue jays, when they feed on monarch butterflies, they consume, in that case, the monarch butterfly is poisonous. It doesn't inject anything, but if you eat it, it makes the bluebird throw up, the blue jay throw up. It makes it sick. So spiders are venomous. All spiders are venomous.
Okay, let's see. Carrie was wondering about those large pedipalps on the males. Is that across all the spider species or just some of the spiders?
The male pedipalps are always larger than that of the female of the same species. Not all of them are that huge, but in general they're quite large, and they're compared to boxing gloves. That's the way you'll hear them described.
Okay, let's see. What else have we got, Charles? You got any other ones?
I see one here. How big can the southern house spider grow?
The body itself is usually less than an inch. With the legs stuck out, it could cover a $50. If anybody still uses $50. So maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches or so.
All right, and we had another question. How big did jumping spiders around Georgia get, or around anywhere get?
Most of the jumping spiders I've seen are pretty small. The largest ones I've seen really are only about as large as my thumbnail, so they don't get huge. I guess it takes a lot of effort to jump, so they don't get as big as frogs. They're usually pretty small.
Okay, let's see. I just have, we had one other question from Mary in Minnesota. Is the southern house spider common in the north as well, or is there a corresponding species up there that's more common?
Oh, I don't think it gets that far north, and I'm sure you have one that lives indoors, but I wouldn't know what it is. I do know that the phosid, the long-bodied cellar spider, is found throughout the country, so that one does. But I don't believe the southern house spider gets that far north. Sorry, I'm not sure what the fauna are up there.
It's Kathy again. Do you have any tips on how to discourage spiders from being around the home?
Yes, that's actually a very good point. I should have mentioned that. The best thing you can do is just continually tear down their webs. They finally get tired of having their home destroyed, and they will just move away and live elsewhere. So wrap up, take a broom or a brush and just tear down the web. And if you get the spider stuck in there, take it off to the back door and throw it out in the yard, and eventually the spider will catch on that it is not welcome indoors. There actually are brushes called Websters, W-E-B-S-T-E-R, Webster, and they're designed, they have long handles on them, so they're designed for knocking down cobwebs and other spider webs from around the ceiling, around the ceiling fan, corners, up around the different bookshelves and places like that. But you can just use a regular brush or broom or mop or something that you can reach with. So it's not necessary to kill the spiders. You can just discourage them and give them the message that you pay the mortgage and you get to decide who lives there.
One other question, Nancy. I have heard that, a lot of people, when they see a spider, they immediately want to spray something or immediately call the pest control operator. Can you explain why both of those are not good ideas?
Well, spiders are just good, and we should be encouraging them. In fact, spiders are free pest control. They're going to help keep down the mosquitoes and the flies and the moths and all the other creatures that are flying around your home. So learn to love them. Appreciate them. They're doing you a service. Now, pest control companies don't want me telling you that, because they get a lot of their business from coming out to kill spiders. And there's really no reason to kill spiders. Spiders are harmless. Spiders are actually beneficial. Spiders do not sneak into our beds at night and bite us. And again, spiders will only bite if they feel threatened. So don't threaten them, and they'll leave you alone.
Kathy, there was a few sponsors. I failed to mention them. They were on the slide. Do you want me to say something about those?
Sure.
The sponsors for the webinar is E-Extension, as well as Alabama Cooperative Extension System. And then the webinar series is coordinated by the following communities of practice: Imported Fire and E-Extension, Urban IPM, Bee Health, Invasive Species, Gardens, Lawns, and Landscapes. And this has been a great webinar. I know we're coming up on the time, I guess, to kind of wind things down. We appreciate Dr. Hinkle being with us and sharing this great information, very informative information. Saw a lot of nice comments in the chat box there. Anything else need to add, Kathy?
I can't think of anything other than to thank everyone for attending. It's marvelous to see people from all over the country here. And as Maggie was pasting in the chat box, we're going to keep doing these webinars. So go ahead and paste your email address in there if you want us to get on that mailing list to know about the next ones. The next one will be the first Friday in June on fire ants. But almost every first Friday of the month we'll have another webinar.
And there's a note on there, a survey. If you had a few minutes to complete that, that'd be very helpful too. It's on your screen. And is any other questions? I guess, do we need to go ahead and call it, Kathy?
I guess so.
Thank you again, Dr. Hinkle, and it's been a pleasure having you with us, and great information. That's something I learned a lot myself just listening in to all the different spiders and all.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Charles.
One question, Charles. Was Linda on the line, and will you go ask her if she can listen to this, where she will be convinced?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to get her to watch this, I promise you. I'm going to tell her she's got to watch this, because I can remember an experience where she was in the front seat, and next thing I knew, she was in the back seat in the car, and there was a little spider crawling up the windshield.
All right, then. I think we're pretty much done. Thank you, Lisa.